Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Hope Fitzgerald. She is a spiritual teacher, intuitive dowser, coach, and author of the Infinity Wave. She is the founder of Wave Energy Center for Conscious Evolution. Welcome to the show, Hope.
Thank you very much, Jay. Thank you.
You're welcome to the show. Hope you are welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll be talking about the infinity wave and the spiritual evolution. So first, to understand from you, Hope, about this infinity wave. What is this? I'm hearing about it for the first time. Help us understand. Also, let us know about your journey, how you reached to this level of, talking about hope, about spiritualism, about infinity wave, all that thing, so that the audience can understand what your journey like. Was it the way it has been for a long time, or was it you were doing something else earlier on?
Okay, I'll try to do that as quickly as possible. I would say that my life has been very oriented towards spirituality since I was a child. And I was very curious. I wanted to go to all the different churches in my town and check them all out. I was looking for something, didn't know quite what. When I was a teenager, I learned how to do transcendental meditation, and that set me on a different path. I continued to have a normal life on the one hand and my spiritual life on the other, kind of like parallel tracks. And so in my spirituality, I researched all kinds of things. I looked into different religions and different philosophies. I went to a community in northern Scotland called Findhorn, which was famous at the time for the magical things that were happening there. And I looked into healing. I looked into all kinds of things, death and dying. I became very fascinated with that. And that's a part of what I do now as well. And I was continuing along these lines, I guess improving my intuition all along the way until 2010. And then, excuse me, I had a very challenging year. A lot of weird things happened, very difficult, traumatic things happened. And in September, I thought, you know what, I am empty on all levels, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So I went off and I did 2 sound healing back-to-back workshops. And in those workshops, I really went in like a warrior to clean out all the stories, to clean out all the detritus, all the stuff that was accumulated in my field. And it came out very empty. And I was so grateful for the experience that something just poured out of me not from my mind, from my heart. I am a willing vessel, do with me what you will. That was something that happened on the last day of the workshop. So I went home, I felt great. And then 3 days later, I was walking across my living room and I was met with a vision of a giant wave. And I don't know, 10 stories high, huge, beautiful, and not threatening to me, but it was moving towards me. And there seemed to be a kind of a message embedded in this wave that I could read. It was very odd. I'd never had visions before. I knew I was standing in my living room, but I knew I was also seeing something right in front of me. So the message was basically, this wave represents a push of evolution that is coming to the planet. It will anchor in at the end of 2011. If you learn to surf this wave or swim with this wave, things will go much better for you than if you resist it. And then suddenly the wave turned to its side. Excuse me. Now I'm looking at a wave that looks like a curling letter C, the kind a surfer would come through. And in that one, the message was to, much like the physics of a wave works, the whale water pulls away from the shore, deepens into the seabed, and that gives it the energy to create the crest of a wave. I was told, leave all your learning, all your book knowledge on the shore and go to the earth, go to the wisdom keepers of the earth for your knowledge. And then mix it with this incoming wave. And then the last vision was that the letter C, instead of the water falling right down into the ocean like it normally would, it looped around and it became a figure eight made of flowing water. Now, this figure eight made of flowing water was about 18 inches, 20 inches high, and sat out in front of my face about a foot. And there was no explanation, and it didn't go away. It kind of hung out there for about 3 days. And then I decided to sit down with my dowsing rod. So I had been a dowser already by that point for, I don't know, 15, 18 years. And I had developed my own way of working with them. And so I could ask questions that were a little bit beyond the yes and no that you normally ask of dowsing instruments. Anyway, I was told, long story short, I was told that this figure eight made of flowing water represented an energy. Uh, I was told it was a 10th dimensional energy, very, very pristine, in other words, and that inherent in the water is a 10th dimensional quality of love and compassion. Now, this is a, a level of love and compassion that we are not really usually accessing here in 3D, and that this watery figure eight was basically a symbol that we could use to access this energy, and this energy is meant to help us through the challenging times that we are in, this push of evolution that that first wave talked about. So that's kind of a quick wrap up of how it all happened.
Right, right, Hope. So it was only for you, or the message was for a bigger purpose for the for humanity itself? Help us understand.
Well, that's a very good question, because I then further dowsed with my rods to find out what I was supposed to do with this thing, this figure eight made of flowing water. I had never seen it before. And I was told that I was meant to share it with the wide world. And that was about the last thing on earth that I wanted to do, because in my spirituality, I kept a very low profile. In my other life, I've been a leader, I've been a teacher, I've been a performer, I've been a lot of things where I'm up on a stage, I've been a teacher. But when it came to my spirituality, that was separate and that was private and that was quiet. So they were telling me, no, now you need to not not be that way. You need to step out. And I did not want to do it. But then they reminded me of that thing that poured out of me at the end of the workshop when I said, I am a willing vessel, do with me what you will. And I realized, oh, that did come out of me. So, okay. So I very nervously accepted this sudden new mission. And I've been teaching about it ever since.
Right. So, what should one do with this wisdom? What is this wisdom about? The only thing I could understand as a very simple person is that it's water related, it's energy related. Now, beyond that, how does one get started? How do you get others started with this 10th dimensional wisdom? Why only 10th dimension? We still have to cover many dimensions in between. So, help us understand how would one understand about a thing which is from the 10th dimension, and understand it in our lives. If I understand, we are in the 3D dimension sort of a thing.
Yeah, and I don't want to get too hung up on the 10th dimensional aspect. Really, all we need to know is that it's coming from a very high frequency place. That's all we need to know. And when we have a tool that is emanating that level of consciousness, of love and compassion, when we apply it to 3D, 3D gets a lot better. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden we all bounce up into the 10th dimension. No, not at all. It's more of a boost. It's more of an opening. It allows more access to more possibilities. Um, our thoughts create reality. You know that, and so the idea of the infinity wave, it's in and of itself starts to shift reality. Water is a big part of it, yes, but it's what's in the water, this particular water. It's that love and compassion. So let's talk about what happens when we evolve. usually what happens is when change comes upon a person suddenly, you get a diagnosis, you have even if you're getting married, like even if it's a positive change, there's a tendency to kind of freeze up for a minute or resist because it's something new. And we're not really wired automatically to go, oh, yeah, something new. Our wiring is more to protect ourselves, right? So the issue with evolution is that it's all about change. So how can we deal with change and think about how much change we've had in the last 4 years? How can we deal with change in a way that actually moves my evolution along? We grow through things. And so what the wave does, just just by looking at it, this figure eight made of flowing water, you start to feel a little calmer, but it's more than that. It puts us in a flow state. When we're in a flow state, we're not in resistance. When we're not in resistance, then we can start to view and the changes that are coming upon us as opportunities and not as problems, as opportunities to create a new way of being, to flow in love and compassion with the changes that are coming our way. That's how we grow. And we don't really have time, in the old, well, not that long ago, but in my lifetime, people would come to India, they would go to India, and I just got back from Nepal, and they would go and find their guru, and they would spend a lot of time in the ashram and doing all these stuff. People nowadays don't really have that much time. We need something that can quickly put us into a state of love and compassion. And that's what the Infinity Wave promises. And I'm telling you, it works. I've now been working with it for all these years, since 2011. And I have tons and tons of stories of my own, but many other people as well. It can shift to reality very, very quickly, either for oneself or in the general area. So it's not just personal, right?
Wonderful.
I don't know if
Wonderful.
that answers your question.
Yes, yes, indeed, indeed. Let's find out a bit more about it from your book, The Infinity Wave. What have you dealt in that book? Who is that book for? What others can learn from that?
Okay. You're asking great questions. Thank you. Um, the Infinity Wave book is something that I was told by my guide team to write about 10 years ago, and I resisted. I resisted. That's so funny, right? Because I'm a human being too who is evolving. And I didn't feel comfortable yet to put a book out, but I finally did. And I wrote it really as a guidebook, as a handbook for the Infinity Wave. Whether you're a beginner or whether you're a very advanced spiritual seeker, I wrote it for both of you. I wrote it so that you could understand a bit more of the story about how it came in and a bit more of the story about who I am and why it was a shock to me and why it was a challenge for me to go ahead and take on this mission, because it was not what I really wanted to do. I'm so glad I did. I've grown immensely as a result. But the book, after it talks about the background and how it came in, I describe uh, the infinity wave in much more detail. I talk about the geometry of it. I talk about the water. I talk about my orientation to all these things. I talk about my orientation to source, to vibrations, to frequency. I give little tiny snippets to understand the context. And then I go through many applications, how you can use the wave both personally, how you can send it out to the world, how you can use it. Just there are millions of ways to use it. I don't even know them all yet. So that's what the book is. It's really a handbook. It's not very long. It's very digestible. As I said, it's written for people who may not feel, like they're very advanced. But anybody who is can certainly understand it quickly.
Wonderful, wonderful. I will ask one more question, but before that, I can see a lake behind you, and I just wondering, it looks to be real. And then nowadays, because there are a lot of backgrounds which can be created, I can tell you, even if it is created, it's such a lovely thing to see that, but it looks real. Tell us a bit about the lake in the background that you have, Hope.
Well, in the wintertime, my husband and I go to Florida, so that we can keep active, exercising and all that. So what you're seeing behind me is what they call a water feature on a golf course. And I like to spend my day oriented to the water. I'm a water person, obviously, and I wave the water. By the way, you can extend this infinity wave from your heart or from your being, and send it out. And of course, whatever you're sending out also comes back to you. So I wave the water. I give it my love and appreciation and compassion, and the water sends it right back to me. So it's I'm glad you can see it. That's good.
Absolutely, absolutely. A lot of even a drop of water has so much of energy. Here it's so much of water. I'm sure even the look of it makes me feel so good from here in India. I'm sure it must be a wonderful morning for you, and I can see it. I can feel it. It's so sunny out there, and it gives a lot of hope. Your name is Hope. You give a lot of hope to people, and that water, body, it's giving a lot of hope, for the humankind. Life, water is life for us. Now let's come to the infinity wave itself. You talk about that book as a practical guide for personal and collective growth. Now personal is fine, but at a time when we are having two wars going on in the planet, how can we work towards collective growth? It seems like everyone is looking at their own survival, as well as people with power wanting to grasp, grab as much as possible within their whatever means that they have got. How do we then talk about collective growth in today's time? What we learn from your book?
Well, I think one of the things that the infinity wave allows me to do, and it's not just me, it allows us to sort of bump up and out, as I mentioned before, up 3D a little bit. And why that's important in today's climate is we want to get a bigger picture. We want to be able to stand back and get a wider perspective. When we're down in the thick of it, when we're in the trenches, it's very hard to understand everything that's going on, and even getting out of it, it's hard to understand. But I can't tolerate really being down in the muck very long. I have to get up and take and keep a wider perspective. As you probably have heard and believe yourself, there is a great change that we are undergoing. And there are certain things that are needing to be finishing. And uh, there are these growth pangs, these birth pangs. And as awful as they are, um, I believe that we're getting somewhere, in that we are coming to the end of them. We are, the yugas. We are at the end of a very difficult yuga, and we're moving into something that is much brighter. And so there's this kind of death throes, and where things get worse before they get better. The infinity wave is here to help us personally with when we see something on television or on social media that is upsetting. I tell people, just wave yourself immediately, wrap yourself in a wave, put it in your heart. Because if we allow ourselves to go down further, that does not help the collective. What's going to help the collective is staying buoyant, is staying in love and compassion. That's why we have this easy button of the wave. When I tell people, go to my website and cut it out, print out the wave and cut it up, make multiple copies, put it in your car, in your kitchen, put it wherever you can, to remind yourself to stay in that consciousness. The more people who can stay in a consciousness of love and compassion, that ricochets out, and that affects everybody in their field, everybody in their families, everybody they work with. It's like a ripple effect, right? If we take responsibility for our own state of being, then a lot of things will change. A lot of things will change. It's just the hundredth monkey effect. You just, it multiplies and multiplies, so that more and more love and compassion is going to be the state of all of our existences. So I don't know how long that will take, but I know that that is the personal responsibility that I encourage everybody to take.
Wonderful, wonderful, Hope. So now let's bring spiritual evolution. Are we also evolving spiritually? Because we thought that all the good things in life are going away from us. But somehow I get a feeling that a lot more people are nowadays talking about evolution. You just talked about yugas. In Hindi, we call it yug. It's so the changing of the time circle. So help us understand, where is spirituality in today's? Where do you see spirituality amidst all these changes that are happening in our lives?
You know what? When I think back to 30 years ago, and there were a few teachers who were brave enough to speak about spirituality and write books about it 40 years ago, they were unusual. They were mavericks, and a lot of people would roll their eyeballs, and think, oh, they're just crazy, people. Now, every you can't find somebody practically who isn't somehow understanding that there is a thing called spirituality, and it's probably good for you. I mean, we've come a long, long way in a very short amount of time when you really stand back and look at it. And I'm so grateful to those way showers, who opened the paths for people like me. Um, I Look, I believe we come into this world with nothing except our soul, and we leave with nothing except our soul. So, what the heck are we doing here if not to polish that soul as well as we can? That is what I call spiritual evolution, and the goal is to polish it in a way that you feel proud of and happy that you've accomplished something when you're done. And I I have a little nuance to the Buddhist idea of enlightenment. My feeling, and I think Buddha would agree with me honestly, is that it's not one place you arrive at. It's not the enlightenment and that's it. It's a series of enlightenments. And every time you have one, you think you've understood everything, you get it, and then the next thing you know, you bump up against a belief system or something, and then that shatters, and then you're into another realm. So I don't believe that ever ends, even after we leave this physical existence. We are always going to be becoming more and more enlightened, and that's evolution right there. So that's how I see it.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. In this circle of life, any point that we stop can either be a beginning or it can also be an end. So it all depends on how we want to create our realities for this life or even the next one. There is so much to learn from you, Hope, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to connect with you, learn from you, understand from you about everything that we talk. So, what is the best way for them to connect with you?
The best thing to do is to go to my website, which is spreadinfinitehope.com, and sign up for my weekly letter. I write a blog, and I also do free meditations on Monday nights. I've turned into a channeler through this whole exercise with the infinity wave, and a wide variety of beings comes through and leads these beautiful meditations. But I also have a meditation library from the last 4 years of having done this online. So there's a lot of material that's free on my website, and but that's how you can keep in touch with me. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram.
Wonderful, wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.